Dana and I have decided that the next person we will not introduce, but we will ask Bill Crozer to come and introduce the next honoree to receive his award. However, someone has asked me to take the step and courageously nominate Dennis Kucinich for the next President of the United States of America. I say that in all sincerity because I like your views. I think this is just me, personally. I have the podium, I have the microphone. I will not be long, but I like your progressive ideas. I like your extreme liberalism. You ought to be the President of the United States. I will not introduce him, but the next person coming to the stage will be our Executive Director, Brother Bill Crozer, who will introduce our distinguished guest and give him the necessary award. Brother Bill.
Thank you, Ronnie and Dana. I really appreciate that. I'm glad to be president of the Houston Peace and Justice Center. And I'm going to be brief because I know you didn't come to hear me. And most of you know a lot about Dennis. And, I'm not going to go over all his background about how he's saved Cleveland millions and millions of dollars by stopping the privatization of their electric power company, for standing up against the invasion of Iraq and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you something that, he may not even know what I appreciate is that he brought us together. In 2003, I've been involved in a lot of political campaigns, and a lot of you, the rest of you had too. But I didn't know a lot about him. When I started reading about him after he was, decided to be a candidate for president, that's because nobody else like him. And the amazing thing is that there were so many other people, and many were in this room right here, in the Houston area, who were saying the same thing, and we didn't know each other. Most of the people that I know here in this room now, I didn't know before he was running for president. And thank you. So, anyway, I apologize for that, but I want him serious. He did bring us together, and the issues that he stood up for touched so many people, for standing up for the downtrodden, for being opposed to war, for helping the oppressed. All those issues are still important today, and the issues still continue. And so, I think that's what we're all still working on. So thank you to us for helping us get together and get started on that. It's a long struggle, we're still continuing. I forgot to mention earlier, just real quick, I want to thank the wait staff here. Many of them were UH students, so thank you all for the work you do. And I also want to recognize one of our diverse student bodies in the whole country. And so we're really glad to be here too. And we're going to be taking questions, again, as I mentioned earlier, in writing. There's no cards on each of your tables, and but they're about this size. And Art Deeks and Julie Covey are going to be collecting them. They'll be walking around. So if you have a question, Dennis, when we were talking about the program a few weeks ago, he said he'd rather not talk too long because he wants to know what you're interested in. So he'd be glad to answer questions for a while too. So without further ado, Dennis, come up. certificate says, HBJC is proud to recognize and honor Dennis Kucinich for courage, inspiration, and tenacity, for the hope your life has given to all who care deeply about shifting from a system based on greed to one of generosity, for caring enough to highlight important topics in political debates, thereby giving voice to issues that affect most Americans, including standing up against banks as early as the 1970s, for consistently elevating peace and justice issues throughout your life of service, for truly representing the best interests of the American people in the world, and for energizing others to join you. So thank you so much, Dennis.
You know, Reverend, when I hear you speak up here, I'd much rather have you praying for me than praying over me. I was saying we have back in the neighborhoods in Cleveland. Bill, the quality of your heart is so powerful and it's so touching for me as your friend to have you call and invite me here for this. Because when I have seen other honorees come to this podium and I listen to the work that you represent, creating understanding across religions, standing up for immigrants, creating greater understanding by writing about matters that are so important to a community. And I think about this whole audience. Each one of you here this evening represents a special commitment. Each one of you has your own journey, your own narrative, your own struggle that brings you to this moment. So I'm here to celebrate you and to tell you how humbled I am to receive this recognition from the Houston Peace and Justice Center as a down payment on the work that needs to still be done, because we're in motion here. Before I go over some remarks that I prepared, and I look forward to having a chance to engage you in the Q&A, I want to make an introduction of someone who has transformed my life and whose brilliance and love is my rock, my wife, Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth, for making it possible for me to be able to do this kind of work with such a sense of joy. Because those of us who choose to work for peace and for social and economic justice, we sometimes carry a burden. People can see it on our face. And yet, if we have a sense of joy and we move forward with love, there's great power there. And the work that we do then is effortless. It's not even work. But as we know, we don't do that alone. I don't do it alone. No one in this room does it alone. I was glad to see Pancho and his wife up here together, because that really is the story of so much of what happens here. People who are working collaboratively. And so I recognize that and I honor it. I have just spent 16 years in the United States Congress. I got elected to the United States Congress on my 5th try over a period of 25 years. Each person in this room who has worked for a cause has met defeat and has welcomed victory. But I know from my own experience, when I say if at first you don't succeed, try, 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 try again. Because when you're committed to a cause, time is an illusion. T.H. White, in his book about Merlin, writes of the young King Arthur being in a contest with the knight Pellinore, and he was bested by Pellinore. And he was disconsolate at having been defeated, and Merlin told him, Arthur, there is defeat in this life for everyone. The real challenge is whether you can triumph equally over victory or defeat. To be able to meet defeat and victory as, in a sense, almost being imposters. As recognizing that our lives are about commitments that are part of an arc that we may not know the beginning, nor do we know the end, but we know that we are on this trajectory. And together in this community, this trajectory runs not only across Houston and across Texas, it runs from sea to shining sea, and it goes around the world. This work here in Houston is important to the entire world. I can feel that. I can feel it when I meet you. I can feel when I hear you speak. I can feel it when I know what you stand for. I come here. This isn't just me visiting Houston. I feel like I'm at a homecoming here. When you're home, you know you're home. And when you're home, you feel it. It's with the people that you're with. Bill, I'm telling you, I'm sitting in the audience. As soon as I got in here, you get a feel for the place. I feel it. And so I'm going to move forward with these remarks with a sense of a family discussion. We've got some problems in our American family. We need a dramatic transformation of our social, political, and economic systems in America. Dramatic transformation. Socially, we need to meet the challenge of poverty because, you know, people say, well, God must love the poor people, He created so many of them. But the fact is that we have so many poor people because we don't have a system which looks, in the words of Isaiah, as justice as a measuring line, that the measuring line becomes the bottom line, but the bottom line is a gross domestic product that is one of extraction and taking away from people instead of addition. And we've got to enable every person in this country to have a means of making a living, to have a means of supporting themselves. This idea about a necessary level of unemployment being important to the proper functioning of the economy, that's easy for those economists who say that because they have jobs. But the truth of the matter is that if someone is deprived of the opportunity to earn their daily bread, we can't be condescending to people. We have to recognize that we have to create a social and an economic system that gives a place for each person. That doesn't tell people, as I mentioned to some of our friends earlier, lift yourself up by your bootstraps. And at the same time, you take the people's boots away. We have to have a commitment that's in line with all the great spiritual principles. Whatever you do for these, the least of our brethren, you do for the Lord or some higher cause. We have to be always mindful that we're connected to something beyond us, something larger than all of us. The spirit of the world, the spiritus mundi, embraces all of us, welcomes all of us, lifts all of us up if we will participate in it and ask for it to express itself in a way that works through our lives. I'm here not because of anything that I've done, but as with each person in this room, we've let that spirit work through us. We're open to it. We feel it. We understand the imperative of taking a stand. And we understand how urgent it is never to be afraid. Because it is fear which is dehumanizing. The root of the word courage is a French word, it's cœur, heart. We have to be strong of heart. We have to recognize that the heart is in and of itself an organ that sees all, hears all, feels all. And if we connect to each other, heart to heart, if we connect, and when we connect to the heart of the world, that is when we have the moment of transformation upon us. Because the heart is ultimately the organ of transformation. We are at a moment in the history of our country where our politics are devoid of heart. It's not about love, it's about will. We need to reclaim heart. We need to reclaim love. We need to challenge the kind of thinking about war being inevitable. War is not inevitable. Peace is inevitable. And we have the courage to take a stand and not relent. I remember when people were gathering in Washington, D.C., right after 9/11, out of fear. Fear was palpable. Members of Congress were ducking, running around Washington. Barriers put up everywhere. People standing in camouflage with guns. Camouflage outside of white marble buildings. Check that out. Oh, yeah. And so, you could feel the fear, you could smell it. And they legislated it. Created a Patriot Act. Set us to war against a nation that had nothing to do with 9/11. Recreated a society in the image of fear. Disconnected us from our hearts. Lost the opportunity to reconnect with the world that was ready to console America, waiting for us to accept that consolation, waiting for us to reunite with our brothers and sisters all over the world in the cause of peace and justice. But no, out of fear, we took up this flaming sword and ended up impaling ourselves on it. We have some work to do in this country in reconnecting this country with social justice and reconnecting it with other nations in the cause of human unity. We have disconnected ourselves from the world community with our unilateralism, preemption, first strike, with our drone attacks, with assuming this ungodly power of life and death over individuals we've never met, with setting aside our Constitution, with the NSA that suddenly decides that they're going to tell us who lives and dies, and they're going to listen to our phone calls, they're going to open up our mail, they're going to look at our emails, they're going to download our contacts. We have to reclaim who it is we are as Americans with our courage, with our ability to take a stand and say, abolish the NSA, stop these wars, get out of these other countries, reclaim America, bring us home, create jobs for all, healthcare for all, retirement security for all, housing for all, hold up human rights, hold up socioeconomic rights, stand for something, remember what it is that brought us together as a nation, the principle of unity, unity, we're all one. The scientists who worked on the human genome theory understood that we are all made of the same stuff. Human unity is a fact. It's a scientific fact. Technology teaches us that the world is interconnected. You can send word of this meeting here all around the world, just like that. We can go on a cell phone and call a loved one or a friend around anywhere in the world, just like that. You can get on a plane. As we tried to do this morning from San Francisco, getting up at 4 in the morning. But we could fly anywhere in the world, just like that. But somehow we haven't learned how to take the journey from our space to the space of someone who may be alienated, to say, brother, sister, to say, not just that we are our brother and sister's keeper, but we are our brother. We are our sister. The idea of human unity, that we're all one. We're interdependent. We're interconnected. And coming from this understanding of this indivisible truth of human unity, we come to a higher understanding of who we are as a nation. Because when we speak of the United States, it's not just about a union of geographical territories. It's about a transcendent purpose of people coming together in the celebration of highest principles, in a commitment to one another. When you read the Declaration of Independence, and I read it often, people pledging to each other their lives. That was no joke. That wasn't just words. Their fortunes, knowing they're all together, that the history that would project into the future would be determined by this unity, their sacred honor. We need that kind of a reawakening today that reconnects us with the deeper truths about what America should be about. It's not about war. It's not about empire. It's not about fear. It's about something that is transcendent. It is about unity. It is about love. It is about possibility. It is about the power of when all the people come together and face a common goal and look at the possibility and potential of what America can be. Not an America that's not, but an America that we know is possible, where there can be social and economic justice for all, where peace is not just possible, but it becomes a reality. That's the kind of belief that perpetuates organizations like Houston Peace and Justice. It's also part of the principles that you send forth into the future. So I am so privileged to be here because I recognize not just kindred spirits, but that coming from this collective consciousness, this awareness that we share, is that transformational power that we channel, that we become as channels of peace, that we become as channels of justice, that we become as of one sound, solid heart, ready to march, to stand up, to speak out, never to fear, because we know it's not just about a cause being just, it's about we are connected across the generations to something much larger than ourselves. This idea of human unity and human progress, which is undeniable, which is an inexorable tide that moves forward, and all we have to do is agree to go with it. But there are times that those of us, like Pancho was talking about earlier, there's a time that we have to do the pushing. where we're not looking at a social or political or economic system that says, well, just wait till turn now, we'll get to you, hold on. No, we can't do that. We are at a time where we have to insist that we take a different direction. And that's the beauty of this organization. You have the ability to catalyze. You have the ability to transform. You have the ability to be able to look at a situation and to call forth a different reality. Now, physicists, people who study the way the world and the universe is put together, they understand that there is a certain thing that makes this a solid. But the truth is, behind this solid is made up of molecules and atoms. There's spaces in between those atoms. There's things that hold the physical reality together. The particles are actually called gluon. They're glue to hold the physical reality together. This is an organization made up of people who can look at what appears to be a solid mass of objective reality, of resistance to human rights, for example. And because of the way you see the world, you can reach into that reality, move those spaces around, and pull out something different. Justice.
Yeah.
Pull out something different.
Yes, sir.
Justice. Pull out something different. Justice. That people will say, well, I didn't know that was there. How did that happen? There's a miracle. No, the miracles are when we summon that vision that comes from the power, courage, in the human heart to say that we have arrived at a moment where we can see what is possible, even if no one else sees it at the moment, reach in and pull out that other reality and animate it and motivate it and send it forward and make it what is instead of what could not be. So that's the power that's in this room. That's the power that's in each individual here. And as we send out this message, not just across this community, but across this country, there is no mountain we cannot climb. There is no condition that we cannot transform. There is no possibility that will daunt us. There is no moment that we will say, well, we just can't. Because the truth is, we can do anything. We are here to transform this world. We are here to elevate this world. We are here to make of this world a place of great love, great potential, of courage, of wonder, and of joy. Thank you very much. Great to be here with you this evening.
Julie, we're circulating around with the cards for your questions. If you have anything else you want to write down, we have a few minutes for questions.
The first question tonight for our illustrious magnetic speaker. Let's give him some more love. The first question is, why don't you go ahead and run for the President of the United States of America? No, that's not the question. When and how are we going to have a just and realistic foreign policy, re the Palestinian issue?
Well, that, of course, is a question that has been going around for decades. Having been to the Middle East, and Elizabeth and I have been there several times, we see the plight of the Palestinians becoming more and more grave. The ejections, taking away land, the crushing of hopes and aspirations. The Israelis are our brothers and sisters. The Palestinians are our brothers and sisters. When our brothers and sisters have a conflict, it's not for us to take sides and choose one against the other, but to bring them together so that the conflict can be resolved in the interest of both, not one. And we haven't done that. We have to be mindful of our own teachings about truth. You crush truth to the ground, truth's coming back. And that's exactly what's happening in the Middle East right now. Truth has been crushed to the ground, it's coming back. And so we have to proceed in a way that taps that wisdom of Solomon. We cannot move forward with harsh words. It's inviting to do that, but we can't do that. We have to understand that the problem that exists is polarization, and you don't meet a polarized situation by being polarized. And so what I advocate is that the United States uses this special connection that we have to Israel to basically guide the Israeli government to a new understanding of its responsibilities to the Palestinian and to the world community. There are forces that are moving ahead right now with respect to Israel and the Palestinians that are going in a direction of destruction. And Israel jeopardizes its own existence by the way the Palestinians are treated. And so we need to help our brothers and sisters in the Middle East, the Israelis and the Palestinians, so that both may survive and thrive. It's not easy, but our intention must be to listen to both and to help both.
Thank you very much. Now that the majority of American voters no longer identify with the two corporate-backed parties, with neither the Republicans nor the Democratic Party, what is your assessment of the third-party movement in the context of the 2014 and 2016 election? Will you help build a third party representing the 99%?
Well, you know, for most of my career, I've been in favor of the two-party system. I just haven't been able to find it. You know, Democratic caucuses, okay, a member of Congress, 16 years, Democratic congressman. You go to the Democratic meetings, have them every week. What do they talk about? Polls, raising money, and how bad the Republicans are. I mean, that's what do the Republicans talk about? I haven't been in those meetings, but I can imagine it's polls, raising money, and how bad the Democrats are. Meanwhile, we have a political system that is so broken down that you have massive unemployment, you have people whose Social Security is still in jeopardy, you have trade laws that have moved millions of jobs out of this country, you have wars that are going on everywhere, and the United States is either behind them or in the middle of them. And this system, this franchise, which Democrats and Republicans have, is not working for the American people, frankly. And so the two-party system needs to be aware of that, or the one-party system, whatever it is. And so I think that it would be healthy for the United States for there to be a very powerful challenge from an independent. It doesn't have to be a member of a party. For there to be a challenge to both parties in the next election, in the national election, for that to happen. Because I think that there needs to be a shakeup here. We can't just let these two parties think that they can determine whether or not to shut down the government, directly or indirectly. It doesn't matter, you know, who's to blame or whatever. It takes two to tango in Washington, let me tell you. This is about politics. And the system isn't working for people. And so I'm way past the point in my life where I think, well, you know, as a Democrat, as somebody who's been a Democrat, they're all the font of mercy and wisdom and righteousness is with the Democratic Party. Please, spare me that. And I know better about the Republicans. So the question is, are we Americans first? Do we have our commitment to our nation first? Or is it related to the party? one of the last speeches that the last speech that President Kennedy didn't give so many years ago, on that night and afternoon and evening in Dallas, had to do with this problem of the system that was broken down and political parties really not delivering for the American people. We really need to, this is a good time right now, 2013, we're a few years ahead of that election in 16, to have a national discussion about, is it time for the two-party system to get a real challenge and to perhaps take a totally different approach in this next election. And so I don't know the answer to that yet, but I'll tell you, I think the time is drawing near for that to happen. And I just think that the two-party monopoly needs to be challenged.
Would you support a U.S. constitutional amendment that would make the U.S. a democracy, not a republic, but giving U.S. citizen voters the right to approve all congressional, executive, and judicial legislation?
Well, you know, you elect people to Congress, so they're going to vote in your interest. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We have to make the system work for the people now. Now, I'm not sure that constitutional amendment would work, but I'll tell you one that would. A constitutional amendment that says no private funding of federal elections. How many of you have ever been to an auction? You know, like a real auction? Yeah, I mean, you know, there's the voice of an auctioneer is something to behold. I'm not going to imitate it because somebody will be, it'll end up on, you know, the web. But unfortunately, our government is an auction where policies go to the highest bidder. Just a fact. It seems like a shocking statement. It's nothing we want to applaud. But the truth is that it's for sale, and we'll never get into that auction. Never. So we have to reclaim our government. The only way, the first step to doing it, the first change that needs to be made in the Constitution is to overturn Buckley versus Vallejo, Citizens United, and any other cases coming down the road, and just say no, only public financing. Public financing, you have a chance for government and public interest. Private financing, forget about it. I mean, it's just, you can't get into that game. No way, just can't. I was very fortunate. How I got in the first place, so it's, you know, like the brother was talking earlier, like, how did he get up here, okay? Well, that's the way I felt when I walked into Congress. Hey, how did I get here? Because I wasn't the big money interest put me in. So we need to open it up so that a government of the people is possible again, instead of a government of the corporations, by the corporations, and you know the rest. Okay, we got, I'm ready for another question.
This question, Brother Kucinich, is a very, well, it's easy for you. As a strong supporter of the single-payer health care system and H.R. 676, what advice do you have for moving to that goal in the current changing health care environment?
The Affordable Care Act, which, you know, we know has had some problems with its website, it represents reform within the context of a for-profit system. And you know, those who try to say, well, it's some kind of a socialist plot, don't know anything about socialism, and you know, they don't know anything about health care, because the fact of the matter is that before the Affordable Care Act, 50 million people without health insurance. Of those who were insured, many of the people who have health insurance were losing their homes and or going bankrupt because they couldn't afford an illness in the family. Somebody was sick and they just lost everything. Well, this is a great tragedy. So, you know, I saw this when I first came into Congress years ago with John Conyers. John and I wrote the bill, HR 676, providing for Medicare for all. Everyone's covered. Now, this needs to be remembered, that 1 out of every 3 healthcare dollars in the present system, which really hasn't changed yet because we haven't seen really any kind of implementation of any major sort of the Affordable Care Act, in the present healthcare system, 1 out of every 3 healthcare dollars goes for corporate profits, stock options, executive salaries, advertising, marketing, and costs of paperwork. And health insurance companies, the insurance companies make money how? Not providing health care. Everyone here in this room has had that experience at one time or another, where they won't cover something that should be covered. And why is that? Because they make money. If they turn you down, they make money. That's how they make their money. So the system that I advocate, we could, with the money we spend right now, which is just over $3 trillion a year, if we took the money that's in the system right now and put it into care for everyone, not only would we be able to have a level of care for everyone, but you'd also be able to have vision care, mental health care, dental care, which, you know, for me, look, I grew up in the city of Cleveland, the oldest of 7. My parents never owned a home. We lived in 21 different places by the time I was 17. And my dentist was a piece of gum they called the jawbreaker. Oh yeah. I know about how people, particularly in the inner city, have some dental problems they can't get taken care of. Dental care would be huge for the health of the nation. Long-term care would be covered by the bill that John Congress and I put together. So why should people work a lifetime, to save up a little bit so they can have that nest egg in their senior years, only to lose it all because somebody happens to get sick? Not under the bill that we're talking about, which is single payer, and frankly, every other civilized country in the world has that. And we're saying, we can't do it, We already have Medicare, when we reach a certain age, we have Medicaid for people in a certain income group, but this is something we can't do. But how can you do it? You have to break the hold that these insurance companies have. They're like shackles, they have to be broken. We have to see that it's possible. Now, I wasn't a fan of this Affordable Care Act. I wanted a public option. 75 Democrats signed a letter saying, we're not going to vote for this unless there's a public option. You're looking at the last guy who was standing on that. But what I saw was, if we can prove that it's possible to have some reform, even of a for-profit system, there's a chance that we can still hold up the transition to a not-for-profit system. And that is the direction we have to go in. It's important for businesses who recognize that they cannot afford health care for their employees. It's good for business, it's good for America's health, and there's another dimension here too. The other dimension is this. Look, ultimately, each of us has to take responsibility for our own health. We all have that. I grew up with Crohn's disease. Very serious. Any of you know anything about it? It is not a picnic. It's very debilitating. But I changed my diet. I made a choice. I changed my diet. Had a great vegan meal here. Thank you for the kitchen. And I started to use Chinese medicine, and after a while, the symptoms of Crohn's disappeared. Because I made this change, I have a level of energy and vitality that is like, I don't even know where it comes from. It's just, but I made a change. I made a decision to change, to take control. So we have to also, we can set up a system that can give people access, affordability, but we also should be promoting changes in diet, nutrition, and exercise, and all these other things to remind people that, we still are, the masters of our own fate to an extent. We don't have total control over everything. But we need to promote that a little bit too. And do it with compassion. So we can have a healthier country. But we have an economic system that's very unhealthy. When people make a profit off of other people's misery, that is not morally justified. That is wrong. And we have a moral imperative for health care for all in this country. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions, Bill? 2?
Immigration reform or apartheid? What do you think, and where are we?
Well, Pancho's remarks couldn't be topped in that regard. I mean, we're looking at We tell people that they can participate in the system if they wait 13 years, maybe. It's not workable. People are already in the country. Their families have been here. They've made a contribution. Let's face it, the bottom line with immigration has been that corporations have been able to get cheap labor. That's really what it's about, cheap labor. So as soon as you start to change the equation on the labor, it's like, whoa. We need to make sure that there is a path to legalization. We need to stop punishing children whose parents came in without being documented. And we need to remember something else. My grandparents, who came from countries like what's now Croatia and Ireland and other places, over a period of time, they sailed into that New York harbor and they saw that Statue of Liberty. And that Statue of Liberty became so iconic. It's part of the deepest sense of who we are as Americans. I want you to think of the words that Emma Lazarus wrote when she held up this principle of liberty. The inscription at the base of the Statue of Liberty: "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Now, this is what it means, but we don't believe that anymore. We somehow think, well, the door is shut, and we are who we are. No, America's journey has always been a journey that has involved new people coming in from other places in the world, and it refreshes the kind of country we are. We're evolving as a nation. And when we stop that evolutionary process, we're no longer the America that we thought we were. So we have to go back to first principles here, which is to welcome people. And we have to stop using immigration as a tool to exploit people economically. And we sure have to do something about these laws that are being crafted right now that are aimed at stopping people from being able to connect with their families, connect with their work, connect with a world which, there's a point at which all these barriers around the world are not going to be able to survive the ceaseless power of people for justice, to strive for justice. So here we are. Next question. Thank you.
Mr. Kucinich, I did not write this question. Will you run for president again? It did not come from me. Would you be interested in running as an independent or Green Party presidential candidate?
Well, I represented myself in Washington as a Green Democrat. Now, why? Because I believe that there is such a thing as our responsibility to global climate, that global climate change is a reality, that we are stewards of the world, that, as Chief Seattle once wrote, the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. The beyond human unity is the idea that we are one with all living things. The seamless web that Cardinal Bernardin talked about so many years ago, that we connect with all living things. We've put that aside. So, the principles that connect us with nature and something higher, what Wordsworth, the poet, called the glory of the flower. That's divorced from our politics. The Greens have been able to put that back in, and I respect that. Houston, where energy is the watchword. You understand that as much energy as is represented by by catalytic conversion, by drilling for oil, by fracking or nuclear power or anything, there's a higher power that holds this world together. And when we separate our energy systems from that higher power, and our energy only becomes about exploitation and degradation of the planet, we've lost it. Thomas Berry, the philosopher, said that the main work of our life, the great work of our life, must be the reconciliation with the natural world. So I think of politics, whether it's me or someone else, a politics which talks about the celebration of our humanity, about finding a place in the economy for everyone, about making it possible for our children to be educated, to have jobs, to be able to have decent housing, to be able to make sure that people's retirement is secure. Those are fundamentals. They ought to be guaranteed in a society. That's when in the preamble of the Constitution you talk about the purposes of governance. Those were unarticulated, but they're implicit in the purpose of nationhood. And so I think that 2016 represents a terrific opportunity to start a whole new discussion about who we are as a nation and what we stand for. And I can't think of a better place to start that discussion than here in Houston, Texas. Thank you very much.